I write this email to Mr. Dave Whispers because I want my story to serve as a warning to everyone who still believes the forest is a safe place. I was 17 when it happened, a time when the world still felt innocent, and fear was just a word adults used to keep us careful. My school had arranged a scout camping trip deep in the forest, not far from town. It was supposed to be a night of songs, laughter, and friendship under the stars. The teachers spoke of adventure and teamwork. They never mentioned the things that waited in the dark. Before we left, they held a meeting. Strict rules, long speeches about safety, about never wandering alone. We laughed about it then. We thought they were being dramatic. None of us knew that by the time the sun rose again, the forest would no longer be the same, and neither would we. The journey took about 30 minutes from our school, but to us it felt shorter, maybe because of the laughter. We sang songs, shared snacks, and shouted silly things out the window, like any group of restless teenagers would. The bus smelled faintly of diesel and damp seats, and the cool air from the vent above me carried the scent of rain-soaked grass. The teachers followed behind in their own cars, so the bus was ours, noisy, carefree, and alive. When we finally arrived, the forest loomed ahead, tall and ancient, with mist curling low across the ground. It looked beautiful from afar, but as I stepped down from the bus, something about the place felt wrong. The trees were too still, the air too heavy. Even the birds seemed to avoid this part of the woods. We began setting up camp near a narrow river that glimmered like silver under the weak afternoon light. My friends and I laughed as we tried to pitch our tents, our hands fumbling with ropes and poles. The scout leader called out instructions, and soon the clearing was alive with the sound of hammers tapping and fabric flapping in the breeze. If you're still here with us, a simple like on this video would mean the world. It truly helps us keep going. We built a small campfire circle, gathered dry wood, and helped the juniors tie knots on nearby trees. Everything looked perfect for a night of camping. But just before sunset, something happened that made my smile fade. One of the teachers shouted for us to stop playing near the river. He said the water wasn't safe after dark. When I asked why, he only said, "There are old stories about this place. Stay close to the tents when the sun goes down." By the time the clock struck 6, the sky had turned a deep molten orange. The forest around us began to darken, the wind slowing to a hush, as if the trees themselves were listening. The teachers gathered everyone near the campfire ring and announced that we needed dry wood for the night's fire. 5 names were called, mine among them. I remember feeling oddly proud, though my friend nudged me and whispered that it was bad luck to wander off so close to dusk. We walked deeper into the forest, the air turning cooler, shadows stretching long across the ground. The sound of laughter from the camp faded behind us until it was swallowed by the quiet. We searched, but the ground was damp from the earlier rain, and there wasn't much dry wood to be found. So we decided to split up. I went left toward a large tree that stood like a dark monument in the dim light, while my friend drifted further right. As I bent to check under a fallen branch, my foot pressed down on something solid. I stopped. The crunch beneath my shoe was strange. Not wood, not rock. Curious, I knelt and brushed aside the wet leaves. That's when I saw it, a pen, golden in color, its body dull with age, but still gleaming faintly through the dirt. It looked ancient, like something that didn't belong here. Ornate carvings spiraling along its side, the kind of detail that spoke of another time. Without thinking, I picked it up. It felt heavier than a normal pen, cold and smooth in my palm. I turned it over, searching for markings or initials, but there were none. My heartbeat quickened, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I slipped it quietly into my pocket. I told no one. Something inside me whispered that if I did, the teachers might take it away. And I didn't want that. It looked valuable, expensive even. I remember telling myself it was harmless, just an old pen in the dirt. But sometimes, even now, I wonder if that's when it started. That night, the forest came alive with sound. The fire crackled high, throwing orange light across everyone's faces as shadows danced behind us like unseen figures. We sang scout songs, roasted marshmallows, and laughed louder than we needed to, maybe because the darkness just beyond the firelight felt too thick, too silent. The teachers seemed relaxed, but every now and then, I caught one of them glancing into the trees, as if listening for something. By 10, most of the laughter had died down. The fire burned low, and one by one, we slipped into our tents. The forest air was cool and heavy with mist. I lay in my sleeping bag, eyes open, listening to the faint rhythm of crickets and wind, until I heard something else. A faint rustle inside the tent, then the sound of movement outside, slow and deliberate, circling. I held my breath, every muscle tense. It stopped just outside my tent flap. I waited for a teacher's voice, maybe my friend's whisper, but there was nothing, just silence, the kind that hums inside your skull. I told myself it was nerves or maybe a stray animal. It was my first camping trip after all. I eventually drifted into a restless sleep, clutching the edge of my blanket like it could protect me from whatever was out there. Morning came too soon, sunlight slanting through the tent canvas like soft gold. The camp was full of chatter again, and I tried to laugh along, pretending nothing strange had happened. We packed up after breakfast, the teachers checking names and counting bags. By noon, we were on the bus heading back to school, the forest shrinking behind us, but I couldn't stop touching the pocket where the pen was. It felt warm. When we reached school, I saw my dad waiting near the gate, smiling and waving. I ran to him, happy to be home. In the car, he asked about the trip, his voice calm and cheerful. I told him everything, the songs, the games, even the strange noises, everything except the pen. I don't know why I left that part out. Maybe I was afraid he'd ask to see it. We reached our condominium just after lunch. The sky had turned cloudy, thick gray clouds pressing low as if the world were holding its breath. My dad had to rush back to work, so he dropped me off at the lobby. I remember the echo of his car engine fading away, leaving me alone in the tall, empty building. I pressed the lift button for the 32nd floor. The digital numbers blinked upward, one by one. Normally, the lift would stop at almost every other floor, neighbors coming or going. But this time, it didn't. It was just me, alone. The silence inside was deep enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. Halfway up, I caught my reflection in the steel doors, pale, tired, but not alone. For just a second, there was something behind me, something tall. And when I turned, the lift was empty. The lift jolted just as it reached my floor. Then everything went dark. The light overhead flickered once, twice, and died completely. The sound of the motor cut off, leaving behind a silence so thick it felt like the air itself stopped moving. I froze, clutching my backpack. We'd lived there for 4 years and not once had the lift ever failed. Not during storms, not during blackouts, never. At first, I thought it was just a power trip, but then I heard it, a faint, wet sound. Like someone dragging their feet across the metal floor. I turned, trying to make sense of the darkness, but the emergency light didn't come on. My fingers trembled as I pressed every button on the panel. Nothing. The air grew heavy, like something unseen was breathing beside me. Then came the whisper, soft, so close it brushed against my ear. "Why did you take it?" I spun around, heart pounding. There was no one there, only the faint reflection of my face on the steel doors, stretched and warped. But behind my reflection, I saw another silhouette, a tall figure, hunched slightly, as if trying to fit inside the small space. Its outline was faint, pulsing with the dim light from the floor indicator that flickered like a dying heartbeat. I pressed myself against the wall, whispering to no one, "Please, just work, please." For a moment, everything was silent again. Then, a loud metallic bang echoed through the lift, like something had slammed against the roof. The whole cabin shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. I covered my head and screamed. The lights flickered once more, and in that split second of brightness, I saw it clearly in the reflection. A tall, shadowy figure standing right behind me, its head bent unnaturally low, almost touching my shoulder. The lights went out again. The air felt colder now, so cold that I could see my breath. Then, without warning, the lift shuddered back to life. The lights blinked on, and the numbers began to rise again, slowly, painfully. The motor whined as if straining against something. When the doors finally opened on the 32nd floor, I stumbled out, gasping, my heart racing like I'd run for miles. The hallway was empty and quiet, too quiet for early evening. I turned back just as the doors closed, and for a fraction of a second, I saw a reflection in the polished steel, a tall shadow still standing inside, watching me. As soon as the lift doors opened, I rushed straight to my house, heart still pounding. The familiar smell of dinner, garlic and soy from the kitchen, should have comforted me. But tonight, it felt distant, unreal. My mother looked up from the stove when she saw my face. "Why are you pale like that?" she asked, concern softening her voice. I told her everything, the lights, the whispers, the shadow in the lift. She laughed gently, like a mother trying to calm a child after a nightmare. "You're just tired," she said. "It's your mind playing tricks after camping. Take a shower, eat, and rest." I wanted to believe her. I really did. I went to my room, placed my bag on the table, and unzipped it. The gold pen glinted faintly in the dim light, like it was breathing. For some reason, the air around it felt warmer. I picked it up, rolling it between my fingers, and my hand started itching. I looked down. Tiny red dots had bloomed across my skin, forming uneven lines that crawled up my wrist. I told myself it was just insect bites from the forest. But as I watched, the dots seemed to move, pulsing slightly beneath the skin. I dropped the pen onto my desk. It landed with a metallic clink that echoed longer than it should have. When I turned toward the bathroom, the light in my room flickered. Once, twice. The air grew heavier, damp, as if the forest humidity had followed me home. I opened the bathroom door. Steam from the hot water filled the space, fogging the mirror, making the small room feel smaller. I stepped into the shower, trying to ignore the crawling itch on my skin. The water was warm for a few seconds, then suddenly turned icy cold. I twisted the tap, but nothing changed. The cold felt unnatural, almost alive, biting into me. Then I saw it. Through the fogged mirror, a faint reflection, tall, thin, standing just behind the glass door. It didn't move. It only watched. I froze, too afraid to turn. My breath hitched, my pulse hammering against my throat. Then came the sound, a slow, deliberate knock on the bathroom door. Once, twice, 3 times. I called out, "Mom?" No answer, just silence. When I gathered enough courage to open the door, the hallway was empty. Only the faint smell of damp earth lingered, the same scent from the forest, the same scent from where I found the pen. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that whisper again, the same one from the lift. "Why did you take it?" The next morning, sunlight seeped weakly through my curtains, pale and gray, as if even the day was tired. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I drifted off, I'd hear faint scratching, soft at first, then louder, coming from the desk where I'd left the pen. By dawn, I was certain I'd imagined it. My mom was already gone for work, and the house was eerily still. I went to wash my face, trying to convince myself I was just exhausted. But when I looked up, the mirror made me pause. There was something written on the foggy glass, thin letters, as if traced by a wet finger. "Don't take what's not yours." My heart dropped. I wiped the mirror quickly, but the message didn't disappear. It was etched there, faint but permanent, like it had seeped into the glass. That's when I knew. It had to be the pen. I walked to my desk slowly, the way you approach something alive. The gold pen was still there, gleaming faintly even in the weak daylight. But it wasn't where I'd left it. It had rolled to the edge of the table, as if it had been moved. I reached out to pick it up, and the metal felt colder than before, freezing, actually. As I held it, a drop of water slid down my wrist, though my hands were dry, then another. When I looked closer, the pen tip was leaking a dark, thick liquid. Not ink, something darker. I dropped it instantly. The liquid spattered across my desk, red. I backed away, trembling, but when I blinked, it was gone. The desk was spotless again. I told myself I was hallucinating. Maybe it was stress, or guilt, or just leftover fear from the forest. I wrapped the pen in tissue and shoved it deep into my drawer. Out of sight, out of mind. But the house didn't feel empty anymore. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the floor, felt like it was mimicking something else, like someone breathing just out of sync with me. That night, the scratching returned, louder. This time, I heard it from inside the drawer. I sat up, staring into the dark. The air was colder again, heavy with that same damp forest smell. I pulled the blanket to my chin, my eyes fixed on the drawer handle. Then, from inside, a faint metallic tap, 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 3 times, just like the knocks on the bathroom door. I couldn't take it anymore. I yanked the drawer open. Nothing. The pen was gone. And as I sat there, frozen in silence, I heard it again. Not from the drawer this time, but from under my bed. A whisper, clearer than before. "Return it." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of the forest. That big tree, the roots twisting like veins, and the glint of the gold pen half buried in the soil. I woke up drenched in sweat around 3 a.m. and saw the pen lying on my study table. I was sure I'd kept it inside my bag. But now it was standing upright, perfectly balanced, as if someone had placed it there with care. The next morning, I noticed the rashes on my hand had spread. The red dots looked darker now, like tiny burn marks. When I touched them, they pulsed faintly, like they were alive. I tried to ignore it and went to school, but everything felt off. My friend, the one who came with me to the forest, didn't come to school. The teacher said he was sick. During lunch, I took the pen out to look at it again. Under the sunlight, I noticed strange carvings on its surface. Not letters, not symbols, but something that looked like eyes. Dozens of them. Tiny, faint eyes engraved all over the pen's golden body. And when I stared too long, I swear they blinked. That night, the pen began to whisper. I was sitting at my desk when I heard it. Soft, like air escaping from between teeth. The sound didn't come from outside. It came from inside my room, from the table. I leaned closer, my heart racing, and I heard it clearly. A voice, calm and cold, speaking in a language I didn't understand. Then it said my name, once, slowly, like it was testing the sound of it. I froze. The air turned heavy, and I could feel something crawling beneath my skin where the rashes were. My hand twitched on its own, fingers trembling. The pen rolled toward me, stopped at the edge of the table, and ink began to drip from its tip. Thick, black ink, even though I'd never opened it. The ink formed a word on the table, return. I grabbed the pen, shoved it into a drawer, and locked it. But that night, I dreamed of the forest again, and in the dream, that big tree had eyes, hundreds of them, all staring at me. The next morning, I could no longer keep it to myself. The rashes had spread to my arms, and the whispers from the drawer had grown louder, curling around my name like a prayer. At breakfast, I told my father everything. The pen, the forest, the lift, the voices. His face went pale, then hard. He scolded me, his voice trembling between anger and fear. Why did you take things from the forest? He hissed. Objects like that are left there for a reason. They might be cursed. That's why people bury them, to keep them hidden. Before noon, he drove me back to the forest. The sky was gray, the air heavy with the smell of wet soil. We walked in silence, and my father held a small prayer book tightly in his hands. After a long search, I found the tree again. Its roots seemed even larger now, twisting like fingers, reaching for the sky. The spot where I had stepped on the pen was clear, like the earth had been waiting for me. I took the pen from my bag. Its gold surface looked darker, almost black, and it felt hot in my palm. My father murmured a prayer under his breath. My heart pounded as I knelt and dug a hole with my hands, the wet mud cold and thick. I buried the pen deep, covering it with soil, pressing it down like sealing a wound. I whispered an apology to the earth. It was my mistake to take it. Now I have returned it. Please don't disturb me anymore. The wind shifted suddenly, soft and cool, brushing against my face like a sigh. The forest seemed to exhale. For a moment, everything was silent. No birds, no leaves, just stillness. When we left the forest, the heaviness that had been clinging to me was gone. That night, I slept without dreams. The rashes on my hands faded by morning. The whispers stopped. Even the lift worked normally again. It was over. But sometimes, when the house is quiet, I think I still hear the faint sound of scratching, like something writing, far away, beneath the earth. Have you ever found something strange in the forest? Something that felt like it didn't want to be found? If you've experienced anything like this, share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and support small horror channels like us. Your support keeps these whispers alive.